Welcome to the channel, where learning English becomes an adventure. Today, we embark on a riveting journey into the life of one of history's most controversial and impactful figures, Adolf Hitler. Love him or loathe him, his story is a roller coaster of ambition, dreams, failures, and unimaginable power. From a young boy with aspirations of greatness to a man whose actions shaped the world forever, this is the story of Adolf Hitler, like you've never heard it before. So, are you ready to immerse yourself in this fascinating and eye-opening tale? Grab your headphones, find a comfortable spot, and get ready to improve your English while delving into one of history's most complex narratives. Start from the very beginning. It all began on April 20th, 1889, in the small town of Braunheim in Austria. On this day, a baby boy was born to Alois and Clara Hitler. They named him Adolf. Little did anyone know that this innocent child would grow up to leave an indelible mark on the world, for better or worse. As a child, Adolf seemed ordinary. He loved playing outdoors, drawing, and dreaming of a grand future. But behind the smiles and laughter of his childhood lay a storm of challenges. His father, Alois, was a strict man with high expectations. Alois wanted Adolf to follow in his footsteps and secure a government job. But Adolf's dreams lay elsewhere. "I want to be an artist," he would confide to his mother, Clara. Clara, who adored her son, supported his ambitions. But Alois was unrelenting. "Art is not a real job," his father would thunder, leaving young Adolf in tears. His childhood became a battlefield of constant clashes with his father. But everything changed when Adolf was just 13 years old. His father passed away suddenly, leaving a void in his life. While some thought this would bring freedom to the young boy, it instead left him lost and adrift. Without his father's discipline, Adolf began skipping school and neglecting his studies. Once a promising student, he now earned the label of being lazy, but his passion for drawing never waned. After finishing school, Adolf packed his bags and moved to Vienna, Austria's cultural capital. "Vienna will make me a famous artist," he thought with excitement. But dreams don't always unfold as planned. When Adolf applied to the prestigious Academy of Fine Arts, he was crushed to find out his work wasn't accepted. Determined, he tried again the following year, only to face rejection once more. Devastated and humiliated, Adolf's dreams of becoming an artist began to crumble. Life in Vienna was harsh. With no stable job and no support, he lived in squalid conditions, tiny, dirty rooms, and at times, even on the streets. He painted postcards and sold them to tourists just to survive. As hardship piled upon hardship, tragedy struck once again. Adolf's beloved mother passed away. Alone and bitter, he started to channel his frustration outward, blaming others for his failures. Then came 1914, and with it, World War I. For Adolf, the war was an opportunity to find meaning and purpose. He joined the German army with a sense of pride and duty, finally feeling part of something bigger. As a soldier, he showed bravery, running messages across dangerous battlefields. For his courage, he received 2 medals. But the joy of serving didn't last. In 1918, Germany lost the war, leaving Adolf furious and disillusioned. "Our leaders betrayed us," he would exclaim. Returning to a broken and impoverished Germany, Adolf witnessed despair everywhere. Food was scarce, jobs were few, and anger simmered among the people. Sensing an opportunity, Adolf joined a small political group, the German Workers' Party, which would later become the infamous Nazi Party. Adolf quickly rose to prominence within the party due to his fiery speeches. His words, filled with passion and anger, captivated audiences. He promised a stronger Germany, a return to greatness, and blamed specific groups for the country's struggles. As his following grew, he rebranded the group as the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party. He designed its symbol, a red flag with a black swastika, and declared it a sign of power and unity. By the early 1930s, Adolf's influence had grown immensely. Despite a failed attempt to overthrow the government in 1923, the Beer Hall Putsch, his imprisonment, and the writing of his infamous book Mein Kampf, Adolf never gave up. By 1933, his persistence paid off. He was appointed Chancellor of Germany. The rise to power came with promises of progress. Adolf spearheaded massive projects, building roads, schools, and factories that created jobs and revived the economy. To many Germans, he was a hero, the leader who had restored hope. But beneath the surface lay darker plans. Adolf consolidated power, silenced dissent, and spread propaganda. His vision of a pure Germany excluded those he deemed undesirable, leading to the horrific policies that would later culminate in the Holocaust. By 1939, Adolf's ambitions could no longer be contained. He ordered the invasion of Poland, igniting World War II. At first, his armies were unstoppable, claiming victories across Europe. But as the war dragged on, cracks began to appear. Adolf had underestimated the resilience of his enemies. By 1944, the tides had turned against Germany. With defeat imminent, Adolf retreated to a bunker in Berlin, clinging to delusions of victory. Surrounded by destruction, he spent his final days with his loyal followers and his longtime companion, Eva Braun, whom he married just hours before their deaths. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler took his own life, marking the end of a reign that had brought unparalleled suffering to millions. The aftermath of his rule left Germany in ruins, and the world forever changed. The Holocaust, a tragic chapter in human history, served as a grim reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred and ambition. Adolf Hitler's story is one of power misused, dreams that led to destruction, and lessons for humanity. As we reflect on his life, we are reminded of the importance of compassion, unity, and the choices we make. History is not just a record of the past. It is a guide to building a better future. Hitler led the Nazi Party in an autocratic manner, basing his rule on the concept of the Führerprinzip, leader principle. This principle was based on the idea of unconditional loyalty of subordinates to their superiors, with Hitler being seen as the infallible leader, the highest point in the hierarchy. Positions within the party were not determined by elections, but rather appointed by superiors, who demanded total obedience to the will of the leader. Hitler's leadership style involved giving contradictory orders to his subordinates, creating a situation in which their responsibilities became intertwined, forcing them to compete with and distrust one another in order to gain power and favor. This fostered an environment of rivalry and infighting, which allowed him to further consolidate his authority. The leader's cabinet did not meet formally until 1938, and Hitler discouraged his ministers from meeting independently. Furthermore, Hitler almost never gave orders in writing. He preferred to communicate verbally or, in many cases, pass instructions through his closest aides, such as Martin Bormann. Bormann, in particular, played a central role in managing Hitler's appointments, documents, and personal finances, and used his position to control the flow of information and direct access to the leader. Hitler had far greater control over Germany's war effort during World War II than any other leader involved in the conflict. In 1938, he assumed the position of Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, and from then on was responsible for much of the country's military strategy. His decision to launch rapid military campaigns against Norway, France, the Netherlands, and Belgium in 1940, against the advice of his military leaders, proved effective, although his efforts to defeat the United Kingdom, both militarily and diplomatically, were unsuccessful. As the war progressed, Hitler became increasingly involved, assuming the role of commander-in-chief of the army in December 1941. From that point on, he controlled the strategy for invading the Soviet Union, while his commanders on the Western Front had a greater degree of autonomy. However, his leadership began to become disconnected from reality as the tide of the war turned against Germany. The defensive strategy was hampered by Hitler's slow decision-making and his frequent orders to hold positions that were already indefensible. Even in the face of these challenges, he still firmly believed that his leadership would result in victory. In the final months of the war, Hitler refused to consider any kind of peace negotiations, preferring the complete destruction of Germany to accepting surrender. His military superiors rarely challenged his authority in the war effort, and higher-ranking officers frequently expressed support and confidence in his leadership. His legacy. Hitler's suicide is often described by many contemporaries as a spell being broken. Popular support for him had collapsed by the time of his death, and very few Germans felt the loss of their leader. Kershaw points out that most civilians and military personnel were too preoccupied with coping with the collapse of the country or fleeing the war to worry about Hitler's fate. Historian John Toland argues that Nazism burst like a bubble without its leader. Hitler's actions and Nazi ideology are widely viewed as extremely immoral. According to Kershaw, never in history has so much destruction, immorality, and cruelty been so closely associated with the name of one man. Hitler's political program resulted in a world war, leaving Europe devastated and impoverished. Germany itself suffered greatly, experiencing total destruction, a period known as Stund Null 0 Hour. Hitler's policies caused human suffering of unimaginable proportions. According to R.J. Rummel, the Nazi regime caused the deaths of over 19.3 million civilians and prisoners of war. In addition, 29 million soldiers and civilians died as a result of military actions in the European theater of World War II. The number of civilian deaths in the war was unprecedented in the history of human conflict, resulting in great devastation worldwide. Historians, philosophers, and politicians often use the term evil to describe the Nazi regime. Historian Friedrich Meinecke described Hitler as one of the greatest examples of the singular and incomprehensible power of personality in history. English historian Hugh Trevor Roper considered him one of the terrible simplifiers of history, the most systematic, the most philosophical, and yet the most cruel, crude, and unmagnanimous conqueror the world has ever known. Scholar John M. Roberts believes that Hitler's defeat marked the end of German-dominated European history, giving way to the Cold War, a major conflict between the Western Bloc, led by the United States and NATO, and the Eastern Bloc, dominated by the Soviet Union. Historian Sebastian Haffner argues that without Hitler and the persecution of Jews, the modern state of Israel would probably not have emerged. Haffner also suggests that without the Nazi leader, the process of decolonization of European spheres of influence would have occurred much later. Furthermore, he believes that Hitler had a greater impact than any other comparable historical figure, bringing about profound changes in the global geopolitical landscape in a very short period of time. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more while improving your English, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to English Unlocked. See you in the next story. And remember, each story told to you here is unique. So keep every detail you read and heard in this video inside you. Everything that was told here is a brief summary of the fascinating story of Adolf Hitler. He was the architect of anti-Semitism in German society, and based on this, This poisoned society took this hatred to its ultimate consequences. The way to exterminate the Jews was planned by members of the high command of the Nazi Party and became known as the final solution. Through them, what we know as the Holocaust was built and structured. The Holocaust killed 6 million people, including Jews, homosexuals, gypsies, blacks, communists, etc. The deaths occurred through mass shootings in the ghettos and concentration and extermination camps built to enslave and kill the Jews. In certain parts of Eastern Europe, the Jewish population was completely exterminated. Thank you for reading this fantastic story, and if you liked it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the many stories that are yet to come. Until the next video,